This week, we explore when shit gets real, real tough. Because as we all know, life isn't all sunshine, rainbows, laughter, and bubbles. There are moments of darkness and despair and raw, brutal heartache. Because a daily gratitude practice isn't about denying any aspect of reality, this week we consider how we dare to navigate daily gratitude during such times. How do we justify connecting with gratitude in the times when it seems that the ground is crumbling out from beneath your feet, or if the world seems to be engulfed in flames? Now, before you go any further, it's important to recognize and honor your daily gratitude practice thus far. If you haven't already reflected on this, I invite you to pause this video and journal your response to these questions. How would you describe your gratitude journey thus far? What has begun to shift for you since you've been practicing daily gratitude? And if there have been days that you've missed putting gratitude onto the page, did you notice a change in your mood or outlook that accompanied the absence of the practice? Knowing the answers to these questions are going to help anchor your practice in those moments that shit gets real. Daily gratitude isn't about plastering a fake smile on your face and marching onward through your days. It's not about sticking your head in the sand. It's about celebrating life and your day, honoring, acknowledging, and feeling all of the emotions that arise and meeting them with loving acceptance. It's about empowering yourself as a sovereign being rather than having your emotional experience defined by what's going on around you. Sometimes our darkest moments, the disasters, the illness, or the loss, these become our most empowering catalysts. The power is how we choose to respond to it and the actions that are taken from there. In October of 2019, a young member of my soul family died by suicide. Something that is pretty flippin' hard to find gratitude about. But I could connect with gratitude that my youngest and I were able to drop everything to leave town and be of support to those we love for a week. I couldn't find gratitude for witnessing so many people I love experiencing raw, soul-splitting grief. But I could connect with gratitude for bearing witness and trying to be of as much support as I could. I couldn't find gratitude that my youngest lost her person. But I could find immense gratitude that their first experience with death was whole, holistic, and full of soulful, intimate ceremony that supported mourning. The grateful jar continued to be fed during our week away. And when I revisited the contents of the jar at the end of that year, that week was full of so much beauty and compassion that would have otherwise been swallowed whole by mourning epic loss. Last summer, my oldest was diagnosed with an unrelenting, potentially life-threatening, and often immensely misunderstood chronic, incurable autoimmune disease. The exact same condition that my youngest had been living with since they were 6 years old. I couldn't find gratitude that somehow my family had defied the statistical odds and both my kids had been struck with this. In fact, I was furious. But I could connect with gratitude that these two beautiful people of mine were able to relate to one another in ways that no one else had been able to understand in the family. I could find gratitude for this profoundly unique and beautiful bonding opportunity. I could, and I did, find gratitude at the wonder of my youngest suddenly morphing in the blink of an eye to being a seasoned, supportive guide for their sister. I couldn't find gratitude that I had been emotionally blindsided, but I could and did connect with gratitude for the opportunity to revisit and heal my own unresolved trauma that I wasn't able to process at the first diagnosis because my number one goal at that time was to be there for that very scared 6-year-old brown-eyed little person and to hold space for their emotions as their world turned upside down. I could and did connect with gratitude for the 10 years between these two diagnoses, 10 years that gave me the time and the opportunity to find my own footing managing medical needs and learning that everything is figure outable. When shit gets real, your daily gratitude practice, in essence, becomes a flotation device. And I'm not talking the inner tube ride down a lazy river type flotation device. I'm talking about the airplane seat that turns into a flotation device when the plane has crashed and is burned. It's helping you keep your head above water just long enough to survive the unimaginable. A daily practice is about having the resilience and the insight to practice daily gratitude, even amidst chaos. It's the beauty of the pause and that gentle refocus, if only for a moment, to acknowledge, yes, and this goodness happened too. Yes, and I witnessed this beauty too. And sometimes it's even just a yes, and I am still willing to continue to look for gratitude. Never underestimate the power of being grateful for your own willingness to come back to this practice and to look for something to be grateful about. Even in the moments that your heart may be breaking and your spirit seems to be deflated, these are the moments to be especially grateful for your willingness. There will be moments when it feels completely disingenuous to connect with gratitude. In these moments, turning to our journals to process is going to help you clear your mind enough to begin to recognize what can still be appreciated. And these are also the moments that I encourage you to disregard anything I said previously about relief presenting as gratitude. It can just be reaching for a better feeling emotion. Because there is a difference between the energy attachment to relief when you are in the midst of crisis than there is attaching to relief when coming from a relatively unscathed emotional state. And I hope you can see that. Daily gratitude is taking the time to reach for that better feeling thought or emotion. And reaching for relief in times of utter devastation is very, very different than focusing on relief when all is really quite well. You can also play around with your language. Maybe you write, I wish I could be more grateful, as you note these tiny miracles that risk being overshadowed by the darkness of reality at that moment. It's about flexibility and embracing what feels right for you and still showing up for yourself. Be clear on the reasons why you are practicing daily gratitude. Honor what has already shifted for you during this practice so that when shit inevitably gets really, really real, you are able to pause even amid chaos to hold love in your heart, recognize beauty with the mind, and navigate that turbulence. Yes, and this happened too. Sometimes it is our darkest moments, the illness, the loss, the disaster that becomes the catalyst of our lives. For in that moment of picking up the pieces, we have a choice of how we respond.